Over 60 and your knees have started telling you things they never used to say. A twinge when you stand up from the couch, a stiffness in the stairwell that wasn't there 5 years ago, a hesitation before you kneel down to pick something up off the floor because some part of you isn't sure you'll get back up easily. Here's the promise of this video. In just 5 minutes a day, sitting in a chair, you can start easing knee pain and rebuilding leg strength without a single trip to the gym. Sound too simple? Let's talk about why it works. Think about the small moments. Getting out of bed and feeling that first step ache before your knees warm up. Walking down a curb and feeling your knee buckle just slightly, just enough to make you grab the railing. Carrying groceries in from the car and noticing your legs feel heavier than the bags do. Sitting on the floor with a grandchild and realizing getting back up is now a whole production. None of that is just getting older. Those are signals. Your body is telling you that the muscles supporting your knee joint have quietly weakened, and your joint is compensating in ways that eventually cause pain. I've spent over 20 years working with patients as a physical therapist, specializing in joint health and mobility in adults over 60. And here's something that might surprise you. Walking more won't fix this. Neither will stretching alone. Walking keeps you moving, and stretching keeps you flexible, but neither one rebuilds the specific muscles that stabilize your kneecap and protect the cartilage underneath it. That takes targeted strength work, and you don't need to stand, jump, or strain to do it. Today, I'm going to walk you through 3 simple chair-based movements. Each one targets a different part of the system that protects your knee, the muscles, the joint alignment, and the stability that keeps you steady on your feet. And stick around until the end, because the most important thing I'll tell you today isn't an exercise at all. It's the one mistake that undoes all of this progress, and almost nobody knows about it. Before we start, tell me in the comments what state or country you're watching from and how old you are. I read every single one, and I reply when I can. Let's begin with the first movement. This first one looks too easy to matter. People see it and assume it's a warm-up, not the workout. That assumption is exactly why so many knees stay weak for years. We call this one the seated knee extension. Here's what it does. When you sit and slowly straighten one leg out in front of you, you're isolating the quadriceps, the large muscle group on the front of your thigh. This muscle acts like a natural knee brace. It controls how your kneecap tracks when you bend and straighten your leg, and it absorbs shock every time you take a step, climb a stair, or stand up from a chair. When this muscle weakens, your kneecap can drift out of its groove slightly with every movement, and that's often where pain begins. Not from the joint wearing out, but from the muscle around it going quiet. If this muscle stays weak, here's what tends to happen over time. Standing up from low chairs becomes something you brace for. Stairs go from routine to something you plan around, favoring the railing. Eventually, walking distances shrink, not because your heart or lungs can't handle it, but because your knees start sending pain signals your brain learns to avoid. Physical therapy research has consistently shown that targeted quadriceps strengthening reduces knee pain and improves function in older adults with early joint discomfort, often rivaling the results people expect only from medication or injections. This isn't a fringe idea, it's one of the most well-supported interventions in the field of joint health. Here's how to do it. Sit toward the front edge of a sturdy chair, feet flat on the floor, back straight. Slowly extend one leg out until it's as straight as comfortably possible, pointing your toes gently toward the ceiling. Hold that fully extended position for 2 to 3 seconds, then lower it back down with control. Not a drop, a slow release. That's 1 repetition. Aim for 10 to 12 reps on one leg, then switch. If you feel any strain behind the knee, place a small pillow or rolled towel under your thigh for support. Do this 3 to 4 times a week, not every single day. Your muscles need recovery time to actually rebuild. As you get stronger, you can add a light ankle weight or hold the extended position a few seconds longer each week. Professionals recommend this movement first because it's the safest possible way to rebuild the exact muscle your knee depends on, with zero impact and zero risk of overloading the joint. And there's something deeper here, too. When you feel your leg get stronger week by week, it's not just about the muscle, it's about trusting your body again, walking into a room without scanning the floor for hazards, without that quiet worry in the back of your mind. If this kind of calm, practical guidance is helpful to you, consider subscribing. This channel is built for people who want real answers for aging well. No gimmicks, no fear, just what actually works. Now, let's move to the second piece of this puzzle. This next one addresses something almost nobody thinks to train, and it's often the real reason knees give out on uneven ground. We call this one the seated marching stability hold. Here's the mechanism. This movement works your hip flexors and core together with your knee stabilizers, training your brain and muscles to communicate faster. That communication, called proprioception, is what allows your body to catch a stumble before it becomes a fall. As we age, this signal pathway slows down, even if the muscles themselves are strong. That's why some people can lift weights just fine, but still feel unsteady stepping off a curb. Left untrained, this shows up as hesitation. You'll notice yourself gripping railings tighter, avoiding uneven sidewalks, or feeling a jolt of panic when you misjudge a step. It's not weakness, it's a delay in how quickly your body reacts. Research in geriatric rehabilitation has repeatedly linked proprioceptive and balance training to meaningful reductions in fall risk among adults over 60, often more effective at preventing falls than strength training alone. Here's how to do it. Sit tall in your chair with your knees bent at a right angle and feet flat on the floor. Place a soft resistance band around your knees if you have one. If not, this works perfectly fine with just your own effort. Slowly lift one knee up toward your chest, as high as is comfortable, then hold that position for a full 3 seconds before lowering it slowly. Alternate legs like a slow, controlled march. Do 10 lifts per leg, keeping your torso still and upright throughout. That stillness is what trains the stability. If balance feels tricky, keep one hand lightly on the chair's armrest. As this gets easier, slow the pace down even further, or add a brief pause at the top of each lift. There's a quiet confidence that comes with this one, the kind that shows up not in the gym, but on the sidewalk, the stairs, the uneven garden path you used to avoid. But we're not finished. There's one more piece to this, and it's the one most people skip entirely, even though it may matter the most. We call this final movement the seated hip abduction press. This one gets skipped constantly because it doesn't feel like it's working your knee at all. It feels like it's working your hip, but that's exactly why it matters so much. Here's the mechanism. This movement strengthens your outer hip muscles, particularly the gluteus medius, which sits along the side of your hip. That muscle's job is to keep your pelvis level and your knee tracking straight every time you take a step or stand on one leg. When it's weak, your knee compensates by absorbing sideways forces it was never designed to handle, twisting slightly with every stride, even if you can't feel it happening. Left unaddressed, this often shows up as pain on the outside or front of the knee that seems to come from nowhere. It can also cause a subtle limp or uneven gait that develops so slowly, people around you notice it before you do. Many patients come to me convinced their knee joint itself is failing, when the real issue is a hip muscle that quietly stopped doing its job years earlier. Studies on hip strengthening in older adults have shown that improving outer hip strength can significantly reduce knee pain and improve walking mechanics, even when the knee joint itself hasn't changed at all. It's one of the most underused corrections in joint health because the connection between hip and knee isn't intuitive. Here's how to do it. Sit tall in your chair with your knees bent at a right angle and feet flat on the floor. Place a soft resistance band around your knees if you have one. If not, this works perfectly fine with just your own effort. Slowly press your knees outward, away from each other, against the resistance, keeping your feet planted and your upper body still. Hold that outward press for 2 seconds, then return with control. Do 12 to 15 reps 3 times a week. If you don't have a band, simply press your hands against the outside of your knees and push against your own resistance instead. As you build strength, add a light resistance band or increase your hold time to 4 or 5 seconds. This is a movement I recommend to nearly every patient I see with knee discomfort because it corrects the root cause rather than just calming the symptom. And what it gives you isn't just a steadier gait. It's the freedom to walk into a store, across a parking lot, down a hallway without a single thought about your knees at all. That kind of quiet, unnoticed confidence, that's what independence actually feels like. 3 movements, 5 minutes, no equipment beyond a sturdy chair. But there's still that one mistake I promised you to tell you about, the thing that quietly undoes progress for so many people, even when they're doing everything else right. Let's talk about that now. Let's bring this together. The seated knee extension rebuilds the quadriceps muscle that acts as your knee's natural brace, absorbing shock and keeping your kneecap tracking properly. The seated marching stability hold trains the communication pathway between your brain and your muscles so your body can catch a stumble before it becomes a fall. And the seated hip abduction press strengthens the outer hip muscle that keeps your knee aligned with every step, correcting a root cause most people never even think to look at. Now, the mistake I promised you. It's not a missed exercise, it's overcorrection. So many people, once they start feeling stronger, decide that if a little movement helps, more must help faster. They push through pain instead of working around it. They skip rest days because they feel motivated. And that's exactly when a knee that was healing starts to flare up again, not because the exercises failed, but because consistency got replaced with intensity. Here's the insight I most want you to walk away with today. Your knees didn't weaken overnight, and they won't strengthen overnight either. This isn't about pushing harder. It's about showing up for 5 quiet minutes several times a week and trusting that steady effort compounds. Gentle and consistent will always outperform intense and occasional, especially for a joint that's asking for support, not stress. You don't need a gym membership. You don't need special equipment. You don't need an hour you don't have. You need a chair, 5 minutes, and a little patience with yourself. I'd love to know, which of these 3 movements do you think will make the biggest difference for you? Tell me in the comments and let me know how your knees feel after your first week of trying this. If this kind of calm, practical guidance is something you'd like more of, consider subscribing. No pressure, just support, whenever you need it, from someone who's spent a career helping people stay strong on their feet. Because the goal was never just about your knees. It was always about walking through your life, into the garden, up the stairs, across the room to greet your grandchildren, without a second thought at all. That's not just mobility, that's freedom. And you're more than capable of getting there.